Jake Wilson stood at the window of their 14th floor apartment, watching the lights of Chicago dissolve into the evening fog. It was Friday, the end of the work week, and he felt like he was carrying the entire financial district on his shoulders. He loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase on the floor, and walked into the living room. Emily was sitting cross-legged on the couch, her laptop in her lap. Her brown hair was pulled back with a ponytail, and her face was illuminated by the screen. She didn't even look up. "Hey," Jake said, hoping for a reaction. Silence. Only the sound of keys. He coughed, louder than necessary. Emily finally looked at him, but there was no warmth in her eyes. "Long day?" he asked, taking off his jacket and hanging it over the back of a chair. "As usual," she muttered, returning to her laptop. Jake walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and pulled out a beer. The pop of the can echoed throughout the apartment. He took a sip, feeling the cold brew calm his nerves. Returning to the living room, he plopped down on the couch next to Emily, purposely taking up more room than necessary. "Hey," he began, setting his beer on the coffee table. "I was thinking maybe we could have a night out? No jobs, no phones, just us." Emily sighed, not looking up from the screen. "Jake, I have a deadline. I have a presentation due tomorrow morning." "A presentation," he repeated, drawing out the word. "I thought you were just playing Candy Crush." She gave him a look that could have frozen Lake Michigan. "Very funny. Maybe you'll try to do something useful yourself." Jake leaned back on the couch, crossing his arms. He knew that Tone Emily was in don't touch me mode, but he wasn't going to back down tonight. A month of no intimacy, a month of cold talk, it was starting to get to him. He loved her, damn it. Her smile, her smell, the way she laughed at his stupid jokes. But now she felt like a stranger. "Listen, Emily," he said, lowering his voice, but with a sarcastic edge. "I'm a real man, you know. I have needs, and your refusals are pushing me to the dark side. Maybe I'll rob a bank, or, God forbid, I'll doffus without your consent." He grinned, but his eyes betrayed his melancholy. "Joking, of course, but seriously, if I were you, I'd sleep in a spacesuit tonight. Or give me what's mine." Emily rolled her eyes, slamming the laptop shut with a little more force than necessary. "Jesus, Jake, that's all you want. Animal instincts, huh? Maybe you should join the zoo." He was taken aback. Was she serious? His desire to be with her, his love for her body, were these now instincts? He moved closer, placing his hand on the back of the sofa. "Emily, I'm not talking about instincts. I'm talking about us. Remember how we used to be? Night, wine, music. You, me, and no damn laptop." She moved away, crossing her arms. "Jake, I'm tired. Work, stress, all of it. I'm not in the mood. Let me breathe, okay?" "Breathe out," he repeated, feeling irritation boiling inside. "You've been breathing out for a month now. Am I furniture in this house?" Emily stood up, holding her laptop like a shield. "Don't start. I don't have the strength for your scenes." "Scenes?" Jake stood up too, raising his voice. "These aren't scenes, Emily. This is me trying to figure out what's going on with us. You're pushing me away like I'm some kind of roommate." She looked at him, and for a second he thought he saw guilt in her eyes. But she quickly looked away. "I'm going to bed. It's an early morning for me." Jake watched her go into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. He stayed in the living room, clutching a beer can so tightly the aluminum creaked. He walked to the bar, poured himself a whiskey, and sat on the couch, watching the dark TV screen. His mind raced. He remembered how it all started. 15 years ago, he and Emily had been different. They met at a Radiohead concert, spent the night chatting at a bar, and a month later they were living together. She'd been his best friend, his love, his everything. But now she barely looked at him. He took a sip. Maybe it was his fault. Maybe he was pushing too hard. But he wasn't asking for anything impossible. He wanted his wife. He wanted them to be close. He wanted her to laugh with him again. "Okay, Jake," he muttered to himself. "Let's get this straight." He pulled out his phone and opened his notes. As an analyst, he was used to sorting problems into neat little boxes. He began writing. 1. Emily refuses sex a month. 2. Excuses, tiredness, work, stress. 3. Talking doesn't help, it gets off topic. 4. Is something wrong? He stared at the screen, rereading. The last bullet point stood out. Something was wrong. He knew it. He felt it. But what? He shook his head, pushing away the worst thoughts. He finished his whiskey and went into the bedroom. Emily was lying with her back to him, pretending to be asleep. He undressed and lay down next to her, but did not touch her. For the first time in years, he felt like there was a gulf between them. In the morning, Jake woke up early. Emily was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, scrolling through her phone. He decided to try again. "Good morning," he said, pouring himself some coffee. "Aha," she answered without looking. "Listen," he began, sitting down opposite. "I went too far yesterday, forgive me. But we need to talk. What's going on?" Emily sighed, putting her phone down. "Jake, nothing's going on. I'm just busy. Work, you know." "Work," he nodded. "And I thought you were hiding from me in the office, like a spy." She almost smiled, but then frowned. "Don't start again. I'm not in the mood for your jokes." "Why are you in a mood?" he asked, trying to keep his voice even. "Because I'm here, trying to be a husband, and you're like in another galaxy." "Oh my God, Jake," she stood up, taking her mug. "I have to go to work. We'll talk later." "Later," he repeated, watching her leave. The day passed in the office, but Jake couldn't concentrate. He remembered little things, how Emily started working late, how she stopped sharing her plans, how her phone was always on silent now. He hated himself for thinking about them, but he couldn't stop. That evening, he went to a bar across the street from his house. Sitting with a beer, he replayed their conversations. Her words, animal instincts, got to him. He didn't just want sex. He wanted her. "I wanted to get back what they had." The bartender, an older guy with an anchor tattoo on his arm, noticed his frown. "Trouble, buddy?" he asked, wiping down the counter. Jake chuckled. "Wife. A month without. Well, you get the idea. I think I'm some kind of caveman." The bartender laughed. "Oh, classic. Mine did that too." Then it turned out she was just tired of everything. Talk to her. Jake nodded, but he didn't mention that he tried more than once, and it seemed like talking wouldn't help. He finished his beer and went home. Emily was already asleep or pretending to be. He lay down, staring at the ceiling. Something's wrong, he thought again, and this time he decided it was time to act, hoping he wasn't too late. Jake Wilson stood by the coffee machine in their Chicago apartment, listening to the machine hiss as it filled his mug. It was Saturday morning, but the peace the weekend was supposed to bring had vanished. Emily had gone for a run, leaving a note on the refrigerator, "Back by 10, busy." Jake looked at the note, written in her neat handwriting, and felt a twinge of irritation. Busy, of course, and he was just part of the furniture, apparently. He took his coffee and sat at the kitchen table, looking out at the empty apartment. Their dog, Buddy, a golden retriever, was curled up in the corner, asleep. Jake took a sip, burning his tongue, and winced. Last night was playing in his head like a stale commercial. He wanted to forget it, but he couldn't. "Buddy," he said, looking at the dog, "do you have any idea what's going on?" Buddy lifted his head, wagged his tail, and buried his face in his paws again. Jake chuckled. "Excellent conversationalist," he muttered, taking out his phone. He opened the notes where he had written down his thoughts the day before. He reread the list, hoping the words would form an answer, but they only emphasized his helplessness. As an analyst, he could find errors in reports, but in marriage, he was a newbie here. This was their first time. Jake leaned back in his chair, thinking back over their life. 15 years together. The wedding in a small church on the north side of Chicago, where Emily had looked so good in a white dress that it had taken his breath away. They danced to old jazz, her laugh ringing like a bell. The mortgage on this apartment, which they had taken out while sitting at this table and joking about how they would argue about the bills when they were old. He remembered them picking out the color of the walls. She wanted blue, but he had insisted on gray, and she had agreed, laughing, "Only because I love you." Buddy the dog, their baby, whom they had adopted when it was clear they would never have children of their own. They had tried the tests, the doctors, the hopes. Every time the doctor said, "We're sorry," Emily cried at night. Jake had held her, telling her they could do it. And they had. At least he thought they had. But Emily was different now. The smile that used to brighten his day was a rarity. Her excuses, migraine, work, sounded like a rehearsal. He tried to talk, but he hit a wall. Her words about instincts yesterday had gotten to him. He didn't just want sex. He wanted her. He wanted to go back to those nights when they danced in the kitchen to Radiohead, when she laughed at his stupid jokes. But she pushed him away, and it drove him crazy. "We have to do something," he said out loud, rubbing his temples. He stood up, walked into the living room, and turned on the TV, then turned it off again. It was better quiet. Buddy trotted after him, lying down by the couch. Jake sat up, staring at the blank screen, and began to notice little things. Emily had started working late. Her phone was always on silent, and she went into another room when it rang. She stopped talking about her days, her coworkers, and her plans. They used to talk about everything, but now he knew less about her life than he did about the stock market. "Okay, buddy," he said, looking at the dog. "Let's get this straight. What am I missing?" Buddy yawned, and Jake chuckled. He went into the bedroom and opened the closet. Her clothes were there, neatly folded, but he noticed the new bag leather, expensive, with a logo he didn't recognize. When did she buy that? He wondered. He didn't rummage through it, that would have been too much, even for him. But the bag stuck in his head like an extra line item on a budget. "Maybe I'm being paranoid," he said out loud, walking back into the kitchen. "Maybe she's just tired." He picked up the phone and dialed Mike, his friend and colleague. Mike was married with 2 children and always boasted that he knew his way around women. "Hey, Mike," Jake said when he answered. "Are you busy?" "Always free for you," Mike chuckled. "What, did you screw up your report again?" "Not exactly." Jake walked around the kitchen, holding the phone. "It's about Emily." Wow, Mike became more serious. "What happened?" "She's distant," Jake began, trying to keep his voice calm. "A month without, always making excuses. Work, tiredness, a migraine. I've tried to talk, but she's evasive." Mike whistled. "Classic. Lisa and I had this a couple of years ago. She was like ice. Turned out to be stressed at work. Have you tried romance? Dinner, wine, flowers?" "I tried," Jake sighed. "I made a reservation at Luigi's a week ago. She showed up, but she sat there like she was in a meeting, on the phone half the evening." Mike paused. "Are you sure this is just work?" Jake stopped. "What do you mean?" "Well, Mike lowered his voice. "Sometimes women find other interests." "No," Jake said, but his heart sank. "Emily's not like that." Okay, Mike said. "I'm just saying it happens. Look, Lisa and I went through this phase. She suddenly became as cold as a Chicago winter. I thought it was me. Then it turned out she was just burned out. Work, kids, everything. I surprised her by taking her to Michigan for the weekend, sans the kids. And it worked. She came alive." "So what, should I take her to the lake now?" Jake asked, trying not to sound sarcastic. "Not right away," Mike laughed. "Start small, but don't bulldoze. Be, well, a friend, not just a husband." "A friend," Jake repeated. "I'm trying. And she calls me a caveman." Mike burst out laughing. "Cave analyst, cool. Look, give her time. But if that doesn't help, dig deeper. Women don't just close themselves off for no reason." "Dig deeper," Jake said. "Easy for you to say." "Seriously," Mike said. "Find out what's on her mind. Maybe she's just tired. Or maybe, well, you get the idea." "I don't understand," Jake snapped. "And I don't want to understand." Okay, Mike laughed. "If anything, let's meet at the bar next week. Have a drink, chat. Maybe I'll give you some ideas." Okay, Jake said, and they said goodbye. Jake put the phone down and looked at Buddy. Dig deeper, he told the dog, like I'm a detective. He decided to take a break and went to the office. It was Saturday, but he had a report to finish, and sitting at home was unbearable. The office was quiet, only a couple of colleagues were working. Jake sat down at the computer, but the spreadsheets did not come to mind. His thoughts returned to Emily. His colleague, Sarah, peered through the partition. She was about 10 years younger, with short blonde hair and a habit of teasing everyone. "Wilson," she said, chewing on an apple, "what are you doing here on Saturday? If Emily kicked you out, I'm ready to pick you up." "Ha," Jake forced a smile. "I just love my job." "Yeah, right," Sarah chuckled. "You look like Buddy ate your lunch. What happened?" "Nothing," Jake said, looking at the screen. "Just family stuff." "Oh, family matters," Sarah rolled her eyes. "I know about family matters. My brother is always complaining about his wife. He says she ignores him, and I'm like, maybe you're just boring." "Thanks, Sarah," Jake muttered. "That was a big help." "Oh, come on," she laughed. "Just talk to her. Women like to be listened to. Not like you, I bet, with those jokes of yours." "Why does everyone think I'm just kidding?" Jake asked, leaning back in his chair. "Because you're always joking," Sarah said. "But seriously, figure it out. Otherwise, you'll be like my brother, sleeping on the couch." She left, and Jake was left with her words. Figure it out. He opened a drawer to reveal an old photo of him and Emily in Mexico on the beach, laughing, sunburned. He remembered how they'd run away there for the weekend just because they could. Where was it now? Jake looked back at the report, but the numbers were blurry. He opened Emily's social media. The latest post was a photo from work, smiling with her coworkers. There was a guy in the background, young, with a trendy haircut and a grin. Jake felt a twinge in his chest. Who the hell is this, he thought, but closed the app. He didn't want to be paranoid. That evening, he stopped at the supermarket, determined to cook dinner. He walked among the shelves, choosing steaks, potatoes, and greens. She loves it when I cook, he thought, remembering Emily praising his steaks. He picked up a bottle of red wine, hoping it would help. In the car, he turned on the radio, but turned it off when the commercials started. Buddy greeted him at home, his tail wagging. Jake scratched him behind the ear. "If this doesn't work, I give up," he told the dog. He put on their old playlist Radiohead, Coldplay, and started cooking. The smell of roasting meat filled the kitchen. He checked his phone every 5 minutes, waiting for a text from Emily. She texted at 7, "I'll be there soon." Soon it stretched into 40 minutes. Emily arrived at 7:40, dropping her bag by the door. She took off her coat and looked at the table. "Wow," she said, adjusting her hair. "Is this an excuse?" "We're the reason," Jake said, trying to smile. "Sit down, I'm almost done." She sat down, but her eyes were tired. Jake put a plate in front of her and poured wine. "So, how was your day?" he asked, sitting down opposite. "Fine," she replied, picking at the potato. "Lots of meetings. And you?" "Saturday at the office," he said. "Sarah was trying to tease me, as usual. Remember when we were in Mexico? Sunburned, laughing like idiots." Emily nodded but didn't smile. "Yes, it was fun," she said, looking at her plate. Jake took a sip of wine, collecting his thoughts. "Listen, Emily," he began. "I know you're stressed, but we need to talk. I feel like you're not here. What's going on?" She sighed, putting her fork down. "Jake, I told you. Work. I'm exhausted." "It's not just work," he said, trying not to break down. "You're pushing me away. A month, Emily. A month without us. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about you don't even look at me." "Oh my God, here you go again," she rolled her eyes. "It's not all about you, Jake. I have my own life, my own problems." "What's the problem?" he asked, raising his voice. "Tell me. I'm your husband, damn it. I want to help." "You can't help it," she snapped. "You just want things to be your way." "It's not like that," Jake said, clutching his glass. I want us to be way. Do you remember how we danced here in the kitchen? How did you laugh when I spilled the wine? That was 100 years ago, Emily said, standing up. I don't want to discuss it. Thanks for dinner, but I'm going to bed. Emily, he called, but she went into the bedroom, slamming the door. Jake remained at the table, looking at her untouched steak. Buddy came over, nuzzling his knee. Yeah, buddy, Jake muttered, petting the dog. I think I'm at a dead end, maybe deeper. He cleared away the dishes, turned off the music, and lay down on the sofa. He didn't want to sleep next to Emily. Jake Wilson sat in his office. Outside, Chicago was drowning in the gray light of a Monday, and in Jake's head, the same question was spinning: what was going on with Emily? He pulled out his phone and reread the text he'd sent Mike that morning. Know someone who can check people out? Discreetly. Mike responded an hour later. Bob McCoy, private investigator, clean. Meet him, but don't freak out. Call him 312-555-0192. Jake stared at the number, feeling like an idiot. Hiring a detective, that was nuts. But he had no other idea. Okay, Jake, he muttered, rubbing his temples. We need to figure this out. He dialed Mike to find out who McCoy was. Mike answered on the second ring. Hey, have you called Bob yet? He asked, crunching something, clearly chewing chips. I'm just getting ready, Jake said, looking out the window. Who is he anyway? Some kind of psycho. Mike chuckled. Bob? He's okay, he just looks like he escaped from an old movie. Coat, mustache, all that. Helped a buddy of mine out a couple years ago. The guy's wife was hanging out at bars, and he thought she was doing yoga. Bob dug it all up real quick. What happened? Jake asked, feeling a lump in his throat. Divorced, Mike said, lowering his voice. But that's not your case, is it? You don't think Emily? No, at least I don't think so yet, Jake snapped. I just want to know what's going on. She's not like she used to be. I get it, Mike said. Look, Bob's a clean slate. No drama, no setups. Call him, meet him. But don't freak out, okay? This isn't a movie, and you're not Batman. Ha, Jake forced a smile. You're not Robin. Thanks, Mike. If anything happens, invite me to the bar, Mike said. Let's drink to your spy adventures. Jake hung up and dialed McCoy's number. On the third ring, a hoarse voice answered. McCoy, who is this? Jake Wilson, he said, clearing his throat. Mike gave me your number. Mike Richardson said you could help. Mike, huh? The voice chuckled. What's the matter, Jake? It's personal, Jake said, lowering his voice even though the office was empty. Can we meet? Sure, McCoy said. Joe's on the loop, 6 tonight. Find me by my coat and coffee. Don't be late. Okay, Jake said, and the line went dead. He put the phone down and leaned back in his chair. Joe's, coat, coffee. Is this serious? He thought. He felt like a character in a cheap sitcom, but there was no turning back. At 5:30, he walked out of the office, pulling on his coat. The loop was humming with cars honking, people hurrying home, a busker playing his saxophone. Jake walked down the street, inhaling the smell of hot dogs from a cart. Chicago had been home. He and Emily had walked here holding hands, drinking coffee in cafes, laughing at tourists. Now the city seemed foreign. He quickened his pace, wondering what he would say to McCoy. My wife is acting weird. Check to see if she's cheating. The words made him shudder. Joe's was a small place with red sofas, worn with age, and a counter where an elderly waitress chewed gum. Jake looked around and immediately spotted him a man of about 55, with a thick gray mustache, wearing a rumpled beige raincoat. He was sitting in the corner, holding a mug of coffee and leafing through a newspaper. Jake approached, feeling like a schoolboy. Bob McCoy, he asked, stopping at the table. The man looked up, looked Jake over from head to toe, and nodded. That's it. Are you Jake? Sit down. Jake sat down, putting his hands on the table. Bob folded the newspaper, took a sip of coffee, and looked at him. Well, spill it, he said. Mike said you had a problem. Family problem. Jake blushed and cleared his throat. Yes, he said. It's about my wife, Emily. Bob chuckled, leaning back on the couch. Wife gone cold. Welcome to the club, boy. Tell me what happened. Jake hesitated, looking at his hands. We've been married 15 years, he began. Everything was fine, but the last few months, she's changed. Cold, distant. A month without, well, intimacy. Always some excuse work, tiredness, a migraine. I've tried to talk, but she avoids the conversation. Bob nodded, sipping his coffee. Classic. What else? Noticed anything strange? Late returns, new password on the phone, expensive clothes. Jake froze. A bag, he said. A new one, an expensive one. I haven't seen it before. And she's been staying late at work. The phone is always on silent, and she leaves when it rings. Bob scratched his mustache. Not proof, but something. Do you think she's having an affair? Jake clenched his fists. I don't know, he said. I don't want to think, but I have to know. Bob looked at him as if assessing him. Okay, Jake, he said. I can check. Follow her, see who she's seeing, what she's doing. But no nonsense, okay? No scenes, no showdowns. If I find anything, you'll know. If I don't, you'll know too. Okay, Jake said, nodding. How much is it? 500 down, Bob said, plus expenses. Usually a week or two to dig up something. If she's clean, I'll tell her. If she's not ... it quotas up to you to decide what to do. Jake took out his wallet, took out $500 bills, and placed them on the table. Here, he said, when will you start? Bob took the money and put it in his coat pocket. Today, he said, give me her photo, her work address, her schedule if you know it. And don't freak out. This is my job, and you sit quietly. Jake nodded, opened his phone, and showed him a photo of Emily, smiling against the backdrop of Lake Michigan. Bob looked at it and chuckled. Beautiful, he said. But that doesn't mean anything. I've seen beauties who lie and simpletons who are faithful. She's not lying, Jake said, but his voice shook. I just want to know. Knowledge is power, boy, Bob said, finishing his coffee. But sometimes it hurts. Are you ready for that? Jake looked into his eyes. Ready, he said, although his insides clenched. The waitress came over holding a coffee pot. More coffee, Bob, she asked, chewing gum. Yeah, Marge, Bob said, holding out his mug. And pour this guy another. He looks like he needs a pick-me-up. I wouldn't mind, Jake said, and Marge poured him some coffee, grinning. Family secrets, huh? She said. Bob's got a closet full of them. Don't start, Marge, Bob chuckled. Go wait tables. That's enough for now. I'll call in a couple of days. If I find anything, I'll let you know. Thank you, Jake said, feeling like a traitor. Bob stood up and threw a couple of dollars on the table. Keep a grip on yourself, he said. No heroics. He left, and Jake sat there, looking at his coffee. He took a sip, but the taste was bitter. He felt like a character in a bad movie, a raincoat, a diner, a detective. But this was his life. Jake left the diner and walked down the loop. The lights of the city were blinking, but he didn't notice them. He went into a bar across the street and ordered a beer. It was after midnight on a Tuesday, but sleep would not come. Emily was asleep in the bedroom or pretending to be, and he could not bring himself to lie down next to her. It had been a week since he had hired Bob McCoy, a private investigator, and each day seemed like a year. He waited for a call, waited for news, waited for something to explain why his wife had become a stranger. His phone lay on the coffee table, and every time the screen lit up, his heart sank. He took a bottle of beer from the refrigerator, opened it, and took a sip. Buddy, their golden retriever, was dozing on the carpet, snoring. Jake looked at the dog and muttered, At least you're not suffering, Buddy. He sat on the couch, going over the last few days. Emily kept leaving early, returning late, giving monosyllabic answers. He tried to be patient, but her coldness was killing him. He had suggested dinner again yesterday, but she had said she was meeting with colleagues. Meeting, he thought, and the word cut him. He hated himself for suspecting, but the new bag, the phone on silent, her detachment, it all added up to a frightening picture. The phone vibrated and Jake almost spilled his beer. He grabbed it when he saw the unfamiliar number. "Hello," he said, trying to sound calm. "Jake, it's Bob," McCoy's voice came. "Come tomorrow. Franklin Street office, 10 o'clock. Got news." "What's the news?" Jake asked, clutching his phone. "Not on the phone," Bob said. "Come over and let's talk." "Okay," Jake said, and the line went dead. He put the phone down, feeling the blood pounding in his temples. News. What news? He stood up and paced the living room, trying to calm himself. Buddy cracked an eye open, but didn't move. Jake finished his beer and lay down on the couch, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. The morning greeted him with a headache. Emily had left, leaving a note, "Gone to work, be back late." He crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. Buddy nuzzled his knee, and Jake scratched him behind the ear. "Wish me luck," he said to the dog, pulling on his jacket. He decided to call Mike to cope with his nerves. Mike answered, chewing something. "Hey, spy," he said, chuckling. "Have you talked to Bob yet?" "He called yesterday," Jake said, walking toward the subway. "He said he had news. I'm meeting him in an hour." "Wow," Mike whistled. "That's fast. What do you think?" "I don't think anything," Jake muttered. "That's why I hired a detective." "I understand," Mike said, lowering his voice. "Look, Bob knows his stuff. He'll find the truth. But are you ready for it? I mean, if it's something serious?" Jake stopped at the entrance to the subway. "I don't know," he said. "I love her, Mike. But if I don't know what I'll do." "Don't do anything until you know," Mike said. "Bob will give you the facts, and then you can decide." "If anything happens, invite me to the bar," Mike said. "Let's drink to your adventures." Jake hung up and walked down to the subway. The car was full of tired faces, the smell of coffee, advertisements on the walls. He looked at the people, thinking about how he and Emily had taken the subway on dates. She had sat next to him, laughing, adjusting his glasses. Now he was alone, clutching the handrail, feeling like a stranger in his own life. He remembered how they had tried to have children, how Emily had cried after every sorry from the doctors. He had held her, telling her they could handle it. But did she blame him? He shook his head, pushing the thoughts away. Bob's office was in an old building on Franklin Street with peeling paint and a creaky elevator. Jake walked up to the third floor, found a door marked McCoy, Private Investigations, and knocked. "Come in," said a voice. Jake walked into a cramped room that smelled of coffee and old files. Bob was sitting at a desk covered in papers, a mug in his hand. His coat was hanging on a hanger, his mustache was bristling, his eyes were intense. An old fan was humming in the corner, blowing warm air. "Sit down," Bob said, nodding toward a chair. "Coffee?" "No," Jake said, sitting up. "What did you find?" Bob leaned back, looking at him. Straight to the point. "Okay, I've been following Emily. There's something." He opened the folder, took out the photos, and put them on the table. Jake picked them up, his fingers shaking. The first photo showed Emily sitting in the Bean and Brew Cafe on the Loop, smiling at a young man. The guy was tall, with a trendy haircut, wearing a jacket over a t-shirt. The second showed them walking down the street, leaning toward her, whispering something. The third showed them back in the cafe, his hand on her wrist. The fourth showed them in a park, holding her hand. Jake clenched his fists, blood rushing to his face. "Who is he?" he asked, trying not to break down. "Tyler Crow," Bob said, sipping his coffee. 32 years old. Freelancer, in reality, a gigolo. He charms women, swindles them out of money. He finds those in crisis, showers them with compliments, then asks for investments in his business. Jake looked at the photo. Emily was smiling at Tyler in a way she hadn't smiled at him in months. "Are you sure?" he asked. I'm sure, Bob said. I checked him out. 3 girlfriends in 2 years, all married, with money. Emily is his new project. The project, Jake repeated, the word cutting. She gives him money. Not yet, Bob said. But he's working on it. Meetings, conversations, compliments. They haven't come close physically, just a hand, like in the photo. But it's a matter of time. Jake threw the photo on the table. I'll kill him, he said. Bob raised his hand. Don't get excited, he said. Gather evidence, act smart. You're in a minefield. One wrong move, and it's all over. Want to save your marriage? Use your head. Jake stood up and walked around the room. What should I do? He asked. Watch this bastard screw my wife. It's okay, Bob said. I'll keep watching. I'll gather more. Correspondence, notes. You keep a handle on yourself. Don't talk to her, don't hint. If she realizes you know, it'll scare him off. Control yourself. Jake raised his voice. Did you see those pictures? She's with him, Bob, laughing like I don't exist. I have, said Bob. I have seen it 100 times. Wives, husbands, lovers, all the same. You want the truth? I will find it. If you burst in screaming, you will lose everything. Sit down. Jake sat up, gripping the armrests. What next? He asked. I'm digging, Bob said. A couple more days. If he asks for money, I'll record it. If they go any further, you'll find out. Decide what you want. Divorce? Talk? Give her a chance. Jake shook his head. I don't know, he said. I love her, Bob. But this, it's killing me. Bob nodded. I understand, he said. Love is no reason to lose your head. Give me time, I'll give you the facts. Your move. Jake took the photo, put it in the folder, and stood up. Call me as soon as anything happens, he said. Absolutely, Bob said. And don't do anything stupid. Tyler's slippery, but he's not worth your life. Jake walked out. The Lake Michigan wind was chilling. He clutched the folder as he walked. Tyler Crow. The name was poison. He wanted to find him, break in, tell him to stay away. But Bob's words held him back. Play it smart. Buddy greeted him at home, tail wagging. Jake sat on the couch, looking at the folder. He opened it, looked at the photo. Emily and Tyler. Her smile was heartbreaking. He closed the folder, put it in a drawer, and lay down without undressing. Jake Wilson sat in his car, parked across the street from the Loft, a trendy loft bar on Chicago's west side. It was Friday night, and the street was buzzing with laughter, music, and the smell of street food. He gripped the steering wheel, staring at the folder of photos from Bob McCoy, Tyler Crow. The name kept swirling around in his head like an annoying ad. Since meeting Bob 3 days ago, Jake hadn't been able to sleep, work, or think. Emily with this guy, her smile in the photo, his hand on her wrist, it all burned him. He called Bob in the morning. Where can we find Tyler? He asked, trying to sound calm. The Loft on Fridays, Bob said, crunching something like he was chewing nuts. He likes to show off to women. But Jake, don't pick a fight. You're an analyst, not a boxer. I'm not going to fight, Jake said. I'm just going to let him know he's got the wrong target. Talk, Bob chuckled. No nonsense. Got it, Jake said, hanging up. Talk to the gigolo who was hitting on his wife. It sounded like a comedy, but he couldn't wait. He wanted to see Tyler, look him in the eye. He met Mike for lunch to discuss the plan. Mike, munching on a burger at the diner, chuckled. Are you going to scare me? I have to see this. Not to scare him, Jake said, picking at his salad. Just to let him know he needs to get away from my wife. Oh, Jake, Mike shook his head. You're like poker bluff, but don't show your cards. Tell me, what kind of guy is he? Young, charismatic, Jake said. Bob says he's scamming women. Emily's his new target. Mike whistled. Seriously? And you're just going to go and... What? Say, hey, don't touch my wife. I don't know, Jake said, clutching his fork. But I can't sit and watch. I understand, Mike said, lowering his voice. But be careful. If he's slippery, he might slip. And don't fall, okay? You're not Rambo. Ha, Jake forced a smile. More like Sherlock. I like that, Mike laughed. Sherlock Wilson. Call me if you need anything. I'm getting popcorn. Jake came home, went through Bob's file, and sat on the couch, looking at Buddy. If I screw up, you'll help me, right? He said to the dog. Buddy yawned, and Jake chuckled. He chose a dark shirt and jeans to blend in at the bar and tucked the folder under his jacket. He thought of Emily at their wedding, her smile, her dress. Anger flared, but he held it in. Be smart, he told himself. He got out of the car and headed for the bar. The loft was full, young people, cocktails, neon. The music was booming, the bartenders were juggling bottles. Jake looked around, feeling out of place. At 42, he was older than most, but that didn't matter. He was looking for Tyler. He found him at the bar, wearing a jacket over a t-shirt, his hair done, and a smirk. Across from him sat a woman giggling at his words. Tyler held a cocktail, swinging it like a king. Jake felt the anger, but smiled. Easy, he told himself as he walked over. He ordered a beer, standing next to him, and listened. Tyler was saying, investors are already hooked, but I'm still thinking. This is not just a startup, this is the future. The woman nodded, looking at him like he was a star. Jake rolled his eyes. He took a sip and said, Tyler? Tyler Crow. Tyler turned around, his grin faltering. Yes, it's me, he said, looking at Jake. And who are you? Jake smiled, holding out his hand. Jake, Emily Wilson's business partner. She mentioned you, said you were a startup genius. Tyler relaxed as he shook hands. Emily, huh? Cool woman. And you? What field are you in? Finance, Jake said, sitting down. Analyzing companies' investments. Emily said your project is big. Tell me about it. Tyler puffed out his chest. It's a big project, he began. A platform for eco-friendly startups. We connect investors with ideas that change the world. There are a couple of big players from California who are ready to invest. Cool, Jake said, sipping his beer. Name the company. I want to check it out. Tyler hesitated and smiled. Green Future Solutions, he said. We're in the shadows for now, preparing for the launch. Jake nodded, taking out a folder. Green Future Solutions, he repeated, opening it. Funny, I checked, and you know what? Registered to John Smith, a front man, and no traces in the tax databases. Tyler froze, the cocktail almost slipping. What? He said. A mistake? I don't think so, Jake said, leafing through. Here, you took money from 3 women over 2 years. All married, thought they were investing. So I sent a request to the IRS. They were interested. Tyler turned pale, spilled his cocktail on his jacket, and muttered, This is a misunderstanding. I don't know what you're talking about. Jake leaned over, smiling. Misunderstanding. I'm an analyst, Tyler. I dig deep. And you know what else? The IRS loves guys like you, and now someone's given them a reason to think about you. Tyler jumped up, almost knocking over his chair. You don't understand. This is business. I'm not breaking any rules. Of course, and they will definitely check it, said Jake, finishing his beer. And most importantly, stay away from my wife, Emily, and other wives. Otherwise, not only the IRS, but also plastic surgeons will be interested in you. Tyler grabbed the phone, spilling his drink, and muttered, I have to go. This is a mistake. I'll sort it out. He ran towards the exit, tripped, and disappeared. The woman looked at Jake. What was that? She asked. Business, Jake said with a shrug. Find a guy who doesn't lie. The waiter came over, chuckling. Hey, don't break the furniture, he said. What's this circus? Just talking, Jake said, ordering a beer. He sat there, feeling like Sherlock. Tyler had escaped, and that was better than the blow. But there was no relief. Emily had been dating this guy willingly, and he couldn't get it out of his head. He finished his beer, wondering what next. Jake Wilson sat at the kitchen table of his Chicago apartment, sipping his morning coffee. It was Saturday morning, sunlight streaming into the room, but the mood was somber. Bob's report file sat in front of him, reminding him of Tyler Crow and his smile in the photo with Emily. He'd scared Tyler into running away, spilling his drink at the loft last night. The satisfaction had been brief. Emily didn't know he knew, and that was gnawing at him. He wanted to open her eyes, but not by yelling. He needed a plan. He opened the notes on his phone. Tyler is a gigolo. Emily doesn't know. I need to show the truth. How? Jake took a sip of coffee, looking at Buddy, dozing in the corner. What do you say, Buddy? He muttered. How do I get my wife back? Buddy yawned, and Jake chuckled. He remembered Mike's advice, bluff, but don't show your cards. Straight talk hadn't worked. Emily was closing in. But what if he showed that he wasn't furniture, that he was desirable? Idea, make her jealous, then hand her Bob's report. He dialed Mike. He answered, yawning. Hey, Sherlock, Mike said. Caught the gigolo. Scared him, Jake said, grinning. Yesterday at the bar. Spilled a cocktail, ran away. Mike burst out laughing. Damn, I have to see this. What now? Does Emily know? No, Jake said. I want her to know. The idea, the scene in the cafe, so she can see I'm not a lost cause. Then I'll show her the report. Scene? Mike whistled. Flirting, genius, or idiot? I don't know yet, Jake said. We need waitresses who will play along. You know who. Mike was silent. Carrie and Liz at Brew and Bites in Milwaukee. Part-time actresses love that kind of thing. I'll talk. Seriously? Jake asked. Perfect. Give it an hour, Mike said. But don't overdo it. If Emily suspects, you're done for. I know, Jake said. Just a little flirting, to make her nervous. Okay, Sherlock, Mike laughed. Don't get carried away. Jake called Bob to tell him about Tyler. You almost scared him off, idiot, Bob muttered. Don't bother me anymore. I want to finish, Jake said. The plan, cafe, flirt, report. What do you think? Be subtle, Bob said. If she figures it out, it'll be worse. And don't yell at her. I won't, Jake said. I'll just open my eyes. Good luck, Bob chuckled. Don't screw it up. Mike called back. Carrie and Liz are in, he said. Today at Brew and Bites, 7. They know what they're doing. 100 each, plus coffee. Deal, Jake said. Thanks, Mike. Jake met Mike for lunch at a diner. Mike was munching on a burger, laughing. Waitresses, you're crazy. What, are you going to be Romeo? Not Romeo, Jake said. I want her to feel it. I'm afraid it won't work. If he loves you, it'll work, Mike said. If he doesn't, you'll find out. Don't lose your temper, okay? I'll try, Jake said, picking at his salad. Jake came to Brew and Bites in the afternoon to meet Carrie and Liz. The cafe was empty and smelled of coffee. Carrie, a blonde with a bright smile, approached first. Are you Jake? She asked, winking. I'm Carrie. This is Liz. Yes, Jake said, shaking hands. Thanks for agreeing. No problem, Carrie said. Mike said to flirt and make the wife nervous. What does she look like? Jake showed Emily the photo. Here, he'll be here at 7. Beautiful, said Liz, a brunette with a short haircut. Don't worry, we'll do it carefully. What do you want? Slight flirting, Jake said. Wink, laugh, say something like you're awesome. Don't overdo it. Got it, Carrie giggled. Let's try it. She winked. Hey, handsome, still the same coffee. Yeah, Jake said, smiling. That's good. I'll tell you about dessert, Liz said. Like, for the best guy. Where are you sitting? By the window, Jake said. My favorite spot. Okay, Liz said. Good luck, Romeo. Jake picked out his clothes at home. A dark shirt, jeans, stubble. He looked in the mirror. We'll manage, he said. He sent Emily a message. Let's have dinner at Brew and Bites tonight. It's 7. I want to talk. Answer. Okay. The meeting is until 6. I might be late. A meeting, Jake thought, clutching his phone. He stuffed the folder into his bag, patted Buddy, and drove away. At Brew and Bites, he sat by the window, ordered a coffee, and waited. The place was cozy, wooden tables, neon, the smell of coffee. He remembered his first date with Emily here. She spilled her latte, laughed. Now she was dating Tyler. He clenched his fists, but relaxed. Today would decide everything. Emily arrived at 7:10 in a black coat, tired. She sat down, throwing down her bag. "Hello," she said, looking at the menu. "What should we discuss?" "To talk," Jake said, smiling. "We haven't been here in a while." "Yes," she said. "Work." "Forget about her," Jake said. She nodded. Carrie walked over, winking at Jake. "Hey, best customer," she said, pouring coffee. "Latte?" "Yeah," Jake said. "You remember." "Anything for you," Carrie giggled. Emily frowned. Jake pretended not to notice. Liz brought dessert. "Tiramisu for the best guy," she said, smiling. "If your companion doesn't appreciate it, I'm free." Emily pressed her lips together. Jake shrugged. "Thank you, Liz," he said. "Too kind." Emily put the menu down. "What was that?" she asked. "What?" Jake said. "Waitresses. Friendly." "Friendly," she repeated, crossing her arms. "Almost jumped on you." "Relax," Jake said, hiding a smile. "It's their job." She chuckled. Jake took out a folder and put it on the table. "Emily," he said, "we need to talk. Seriously." "About what?" she asked, looking at the folder. "About us," he said, "and about Tyler Crow." Her eyes widened. "Who is it?" she said, tensing up. "Don't pretend," Jake said, opening the folder. "I know you met him. Photos, cafe, park, his hand on yours. He's a gigolo. He cheats on women. He hired a detective." Emily turned pale as she looked at the photo. "You were following," she said, raising her voice. "Yeah," Jake said. "You pushed me away. A month without us. Tried to talk. You wouldn't listen. I love you, but the marriage is on the line." Carrie passed by with a wink. Emily clenched her fists. "That's a plan too," she asked. "Hiring waitresses to make me feel like shit." Will Jake be able to save their marriage, or is Emily's betrayal too much to forgive? Like if you believe that the truth always finds a way to come out, and subscribe so you don't miss the next exciting stories. "No," Jake lied. "They're doing the job. But you have to understand, I'm not giving up. I want us. It's me or Tyler." Emily stood up, grabbing her bag. "You're unbearable," she said, trembling. "I don't know what to think." "Think about it," Jake said, standing up. "I'm going to the lake house. If you want us, prove it to me you have time to think. If not, I'll understand." He threw the money down and walked out. Emily stood there, looking at the folder. Jake got into the car, his heart pounding. The plan had worked, but the victory was bittersweet. Jake Wilson drove through the dark streets of Chicago, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The lights of the city flashed by, but he ignored them. The scene at Brew and Bites played in his head. Emily, her shock, her anger, her pain. He had made her jealous, exposed the truth about Tyler Crow, given her a choice. There was no relief, emptiness, anger, a faint hope that she would choose marriage. He parked at the house and turned off the engine. The silence was overwhelming. Jake stared at the dark windows of the apartment. Emily stayed in the cafe, looking at the photo. He didn't know what she would do. Come back, call, meet Tyler. The thought cut him, but he pushed it away. "Be smart," Bob had said. He had acted. Now it was her turn. "Okay, Jake," he muttered as he walked out. In the apartment, light flooded the living room. Buddy ran up, wagging his tail. Jake scratched him, the dog's warmth calming him. "Hello, Buddy," he said. "You won't betray me, will you?" Buddy licked his hand. Jake chuckled. In the kitchen, he drank the water in one gulp. The folder was left in the cafe, but the photo of Emily and Tyler burned his brain. He squeezed the glass, put it down, afraid to break it. Anger was useless. Her movie. He called Mike. He answered, sleepy. "Hey, Sherlock," Mike said, yawning. "It's night." "Sorry," Jake said, sitting down on the couch. "I was at the cafe. Made a plan." "Wow," Mike perked up. "Did the waitresses do their job?" "Yeah," Jake said. "Carrie's the heart for the coffee, Liz is the dessert." Emily nearly exploded. Mike burst out laughing. "I have to see this." Then he gave me the folder. "Yeah," Jake said, rubbing his temples. "I told her about Tyler, showed her the photo. She screamed that I was following her. I said the marriage was on the line, I was going to the house. I gave her a week." "Seriously?" Mike whistled. "She what?" "Nothing," Jake said. "Stayed with the folder. I don't know what will happen." "Bro," Mike said, "you did what you could. It's her move. Are you ready if she doesn't choose you?" Jake fell silent, looking at Buddy. "I don't know," he said. "I love her. I can't live like this." "I understand," Mike said. "Lisa and I had a crisis. We almost broke up, but we talked and things got better. Give her a chance." "I'm trying," Jake said, "but if she chooses him." "Don't get worked up," Mike said. "You acted like a man. Invite me to the bar if you need anything." "Deal," Jake said, smiling. "Thanks." He stood up, went into the bedroom, and got out his suitcase. He threw on jeans, t-shirts, and a sweater. He noticed a wedding photo Emily in a dress, him in a tie, laughing. He picked up the frame, ran his finger over it. 15 years. Mortgage, Buddy, trying with kids, tears. They'd been through it all, but now they were on the edge. "Damn, Emily," he muttered, putting the photo down. "Why?" He added a toothbrush, a book, and exercise equipment. A week in the house is the right amount of time. If he comes, they'll talk. If not, I didn't think about it. I wrote a note in the kitchen. "Emily, I'm at the lake house. A week is your time. Think about it, you want us. I love you, but this can't be. Jake." Attached to the refrigerator. Buddy poked his knee. "You'll stay," Jake said, petting her. "The neighbor will feed you." He called Mrs. Clark. "Mrs. Clark, Jake," he said. "Will you look after Buddy for a week? I'm going away." "Of course," she said warmly. "Where to?" "A lake house," Jake said. "To relax." "I understand," she said. "Take warm clothes, it's cold. Buddy will be king." "Thanks," Jake said. "The key is under the mat." He went to Mrs. Clark and gave her the key. She noticed his frown. "Family matters?" she asked, holding a mug of tea. "Something like that," Jake said evasively. "Everything will be fine," she said. "My John, may he rest in peace, also went away to think. He came back, and we lived together for 30 years. "I hope so," Jake said, smiling. "Thank you." He picked up his suitcase and bag, patted Buddy, and went out. The night air was chilly. The wind from the lake was chilly. Jake threw his things in the trunk and got behind the wheel. Left the city, Chicago lights melting. Turned on the radio, turned it off pop. Better quiet. Thought about Emily, her face in the cafe. Shock, anger, guilt. Remembered the first trip to the cabin 10 years ago. Steaks, wine, love by the fire. Alone now, and this could be the end. Stopped at a gas station. Got coffee, chips, water. The cashier, a guy with a piercing, noticed the frown. "Is it a long way?" he asked, punching the door. "To the lake," Jake said, taking out the map. "Fishing?" the cashier asked. "Rest," Jake said. "Take care," the guy said, handing over the check. "The lake is cold." "Thank you," Jake said. In the car, he took a sip of coffee. Tasteless. He remembered Emily grumbling about his coffee. "You'll become a zombie." He smiled, but it faded. He checked his phone, nothing. He threw it on the seat and drove off. Jake Wilson pulled off the highway onto the gravel road to the cabin by Lake Michigan. His watch said 2:47 and his eyes were bright with exhaustion. It had been a long drive from Chicago, and thoughts of brew and bites were haunting him. He left Emily with Bob's folder of photos of her encounters with Tyler Crowe and an ultimatum: 1 week to decide if she wanted marriage. Her face, the shock, the anger, the silence haunted him. He'd done everything, but the fear that this was the end was clenching his heart. The moon lit up the lake, silvering the light between the pines. Jake slowed down, the headlights picking out the trees. He expected the darkness of the cabin where he would spend the week, but instead he saw lights in the windows. He frowned, gripping the steering wheel. Who's there? He thought, his pulse quickening. Burglars, neighbors. He parked, turned off the engine, and got out. The lake was chilly, the pines smelled damp. He stopped at the gas station an hour ago, got coffee and chips. The cashier, a guy with piercings, noticed the frown. "Night Road?" he asked, punching the door. "To the lake," Jake said, taking out the map. "Take care," the boy said. "It's cold out there." "Thank you," Jake said as he left. Now he stood outside the cabin, looking at the light. The door was ajar, rustling inside. He pulled out his phone, ready to call 911, but he pushed the door open, stepped inside, and froze. Emily was standing in the living room, wearing black lace lingerie. Her hair was loose, and she was holding a leather whip. She smiled, tilting her head, her eyes shining. "I've been a bad girl," she said, softly, playfully. "Punish me." Jake started, stunned. The anger, the hurt, the doubt melted away in her smile. He laughed, the tension pouring out. "Damn, Emily," he said, throwing down his bag. "Seriously." She stepped closer, her bare feet slapping the floor. "Seriously," she said, smiling. "I'm here. I want you." He stepped forward, hugged her. She pressed herself against him, wrapping her arms around him. Her body was familiar, like a home. Months of fighting, Tyler retreated. He inhaled her scent, ran his hand through her hair. Emily looked down, and the whip fell. "After the cafe, I was sitting and looking at photos," she said, shuddering. "I was angry, but I realized you were right. I pushed you away. I don't want to lose you." Jake squeezed her shoulders. "I almost lost you," he said bitterly. "A month without us. I thought you didn't love me." He pulled her in, and they kissed for the first time in months. Her lips, her warmth, her breath, everything I was waiting for. They fell on the sofa, laughing, without breaking their embrace. "Remember the first time here?" Emily said on his chest. "Of course I remember," Jake said, stroking his hair. "We didn't sleep until the morning," she smiled. "I missed you." "Me too," he said. Jake Wilson sat on the hardwood floor in front of the fireplace in his Lake Michigan cabin, stoking the fire. The flames crackled, shadows danced on the walls, the lake whispered outside. It was about 4 in the morning, and he was tired but not sleepy. Emily sat next to him, wearing an old t-shirt of his, too big, wrapped in a wool blanket. She looked just like she did in their first month's vulnerable familiar. An hour ago, she had met him at the door in lace lingerie with a whip, the shock washing away the pain. Now it was time to talk. Jake looked into the fire, feeling her shoulder. 15 years of marriage, a mortgage, buddy, failures with children, they had been through it all. But Tyler Crowe had almost broken them. He wanted to understand. "Emily," he said, looking at the flames. "What happened? Why Tyler?" She sighed, drawing her knees up. "I was waiting for a question," she said quietly. "I don't know how to explain it so you don't hate it." "I won't hate it," Jake said, turning around. "But I need to know. A month without you. I thought you didn't need it." Emily looked up, her eyes shining. "Always needed," she said. "But I was drowning. Work, deadlines, stress. You were busy with reports. I didn't want to burden you." "Load," Jake frowned. "I'm the husband. I should have told you." "I know," she said, looking down. "I kept quiet. Tyler showed up. Attentive. He said I was talented, beautiful. I fell for it like a fool." Jake clenched his fists and relaxed. "He's a gigolo," he said. "Bob's report conned women out of money. You're the target." Emily nodded, her cheeks turning pink. "Now I know," she said. "He gave me the attention I was missing. Not from you. From myself. I forgot who I am. I'm sorry. Jake watched, anger warring with pity. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. I tried. Cafes at home. She pushed me away. I was afraid, she said, trembling. What do you think? I'm weak. Or you don't care? Still care? Jake raised his voice. Detective, scared the bastard, circus with waitresses. I care. I love you. Emily smiled, tears. Waitresses, she giggled. Almost destroyed the table. Heart on the foam. The plan, Jake smirked. You were ready to kill. Of course, she said, pushing. I realized how much I want you. Not Tyler. You. Jake nodded, looking at the fire. I want you, he said. But be honest. Don't be silent. I promise, she said, putting her hand down. Just us. They were silent, listening to the firewood. Jake felt the words lifting the weight. He turned. Do you remember how embarrassed you were? He smiled. The first months, you were afraid to take off your shirt. Emily laughed. I was afraid you'd notice how I blush when you kiss me, she said. Idiots. Classy idiots, Jake said, moving closer. I want it back. Me too, she said softly. She kissed him. He responded, the warmth of his lips spreading. The kiss deepened. They pressed together, forgetting the cold. Emily pulled at her t-shirt. He helped, laughing. Are you afraid to take it off? She giggled. Only if you run away, he said, pulling her closer. They fell on the blanket, laughter mixed with fire. Passion flared up, but with tenderness a return. They moved slowly, remembering touches, sighs. Jake looked into her eyes. They were newlyweds, forgetting everyday life. I missed you, Emily said, breathing heavily on his chest. Me too, he said, stroking her back. I didn't make it easier. I know, she said, rising. Here, I won't leave. They lay there, hugging. The fire was dying down. They talked about the night, honestly. She was talking about work, sucking out strength. He is afraid that he will leave. They laughed, remembering beer on sneakers on Radiohead, how she taught how to cook steaks. You're a better cook, Jake grinned. You're being lazy, she nudged. I forgive you. By morning, they dozed off in a blanket. Jake felt a chance maybe they hadn't lost each other yet. She was there. Enough. Jake Wilson drove down the highway, one hand on the steering wheel, the other touching Emily's fingers where they rested on his knee. The morning sun was shining on the road, reflecting off Lake Michigan, and for the first time in months he felt light. Emily sat next to him, looking out the window, her brown hair blowing in the breeze from the cracked glass. The lake house was behind them, and so was their night of passion, tears, talking until dawn. They had decided to go back to Chicago, to their apartment, to their lives, but they both knew there was no easy way to get it back. The problems that had nearly destroyed their marriage needed work. Buddy, their golden retriever, was asleep in the back seat, snoring, his paws shaking in his sleep. Jake glanced in the rearview mirror and smiled. Our baby seems happy, he said, squeezing Emily's hand. She turned, her lips twitching into a smile. Buddy is always happy when there's food or a couch nearby, she replied, stroking his fingers. What about us? Jake took a deep breath, looking at the road. We're working on it, right? He said, trying to sound confident. The night was good, but I don't want this to be just a moment. Emily nodded, looking away towards the lake. Me too, she said quietly. Jake, I'm serious. I want this to work. But I'm scared. What if we slip again? He squeezed her hand tighter, feeling a pang of anxiety. We won't back down, he said. We know what's at stake. And I'm not going to keep quiet if something goes wrong. You promised, too. I promised, she said, looking at him. Her eyes were tired, but there was a flicker of determination in them. I was thinking about work. I want to quit. Jake raised his eyebrows, not taking his eyes off the road. Quit? He asked. Emily, this is unexpected. You love your job. Or did. She shook her head, fiddling with the strap of her bag. I thought I loved you, she said. But these last few months, it's not love. It's survival. The deadlines, the meetings, the pressure. I was drowning, Jake. And instead of telling you, she paused, swallowing. I looked elsewhere. In Tyler, he said, trying not to sound harsh. Emily looked down. Yes, she admitted, and I hate myself for it. But the job, it was draining me. I'd come home empty. I didn't want to burden you, but I ended up making it worse. Jake nodded, turning over her words. He knew her job at the marketing agency was tough late calls, urgent presentations, a boss who demanded the impossible. But he hadn't thought it had gone this far. We'll manage financially, he said, recalling their budget. My salary covers the mortgage, the bills, even Buddy and his expensive food. But are you sure? This is a big step. I'm sure, she said, straightening up. I don't want to be that Emily who comes home and hides behind her laptop. I want to be with you. With us. Maybe I'll do something new freelancing courses. But right now I need to stop. Jake looked at her, feeling warmth in his chest. Okay, he said, I support that. But let's discuss it at home with numbers. I'm an analyst. I like tables. She laughed for the first time that morning, and the sound of her laughter was like music. Signs, she repeated, pushing his shoulder. You're unbearable. You love it, he grinned, and for a second they were back to their old selves, newlyweds teasing each other at every turn. They fell silent, but the silence was comfortable. Jake thought about what was waiting for them at home. The apartment, Buddy, their routine all the same, but now with a crack that needed to be mended. He remembered Mike's advice, give her a chance, but dig deep. They'd started digging the night before, but it wasn't enough. Emily, he said, lowering his voice, I was thinking, maybe we should talk to someone, like a professional, a family therapist, or whatever they call them. She turned, her eyebrows rising slightly. Therapist? She asked. Are you serious? You always called it weakling nonsense. Jake chuckled, remembering his old jokes. Yeah, I know, he said. But I was wrong. We've been through hell, Tyler, the fights, my stupid show in the cafe. I don't want that to happen again. I want us to learn to talk, not just be silent. Emily was silent, looking at the road. He waited for her to wave him off, but she nodded. Maybe you're right, she said. I was afraid to tell you about my problems because, I don't know, I thought you'd think I was weak. And you kept quiet, and I thought you didn't care. Maybe a therapist can help us, not keep quiet. That's what I want, Jake said, feeling relieved. For us to be honest, even if it hurts. Even if it hurts, she repeated, squeezing his hand. Okay, let's try. But if the therapist starts asking about our childhood traumas, I'll run away. He laughed, shaking his head. We have a deal, he said. No childhood trauma. Just us, here and now. They pulled into Chicago around noon. The city was buzzing with cars honking, people hurrying along the sidewalks, the smell of hot dogs in the air. Jake parked in front of their house, and Buddy woke up immediately, nuzzling his shoulder. Home, Buddy, Jake said, opening the door. Come on, show me how much you missed me. Emily picked up her bag and looked at their building, 14 floors, their apartment on one of them. She sighed. It's strange, she said. We left yesterday, but it seems like an eternity has passed. Because it did, Jake said, taking her bag. But we're back. Let's go. They stood close in the elevator, Buddy bumping into Emily's legs. She scratched him behind the ear, smiling. He knows we're okay, she said. He knows he wants food, Jake chuckled, and they laughed. The apartment smelled like home coffee, books, a hint of dog hair. Buddy ran for the bowl, and Jake dropped his bags by the door. Emily walked into the living room, stood by the window, looking out at the city. I missed this view, she said, even those stupid pigeons. Jake walked over and hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. And I missed you, he said, even when you were here. She turned and hugged him, pressing herself against him. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I forgive you, he said, kissing her forehead, but let's not repeat it. They sat down on the couch, Buddy lying down at their feet. Jake pulled out his laptop and opened a spreadsheet with their budget. Okay, miss, I want to quit, he said, grinning. Let's do the math. My salary is $120,000 a year. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, food, Buddy, that's about $80,000. That leaves for living expenses, travel, stuff. Your salary is $90,000, but without it, we'll just tighten our belts. No new bags, okay? Emily rolled her eyes, pushing him. That bag was a gift, she said. From a colleague. A woman. Don't start. Okay, he laughed. But seriously, we'll manage. Maybe less often at restaurants, but I'm ready to cook steaks. Your steaks are love, she said, smiling. I'll think about freelancing. Maybe design or consulting. But not now. I want to just be for a couple of months. It's good to be, Jake said, closing his laptop. But let's find a therapist. I don't want to put it off. Emily nodded and took out her phone. I'm already looking, she said, leafing through. Here, Dr. Linda Carter. They say she's good with couples. Office on the loop. Want me to write it down? Go ahead, he said. But if she says I'm a caveman, I'll leave. She'll say you're a cute caveman, Emily giggled as she dialed the number. She made an appointment for Wednesday. 10 Jake watched her talk to the receptionist and felt like they were taking a step. A small one, but an important one. It's done, she said, putting the phone down. Dr. Carter is waiting for us. Now I have to quit. I'll write a letter today. Today? Jake asked. Don't you want to think about it for a couple of days? No, she said decisively. I've made up my mind. I want to close this chapter. My boss, Richard, already knows I'm at my limit. He won't be surprised. Jake nodded, feeling proud of her determination. Okay, he said. Write the letter, and I'll get dinner ready. Steaks? Only with potatoes, she said, smiling. We have a deal, he said, standing up. Emily opened her laptop and started writing a letter of resignation. Jake went to the kitchen, got out some meat, potatoes, and greens. He turned on their old playlist Radiohead, Coldplay, and started cooking. The smell of fried meat filled the apartment, and Buddy came running and sat down at the stove. Not a chance, Buddy, Jake said, tossing him a piece of carrot. This is for us. Emily walked in holding a laptop. Send it, she said, setting it on the table. To Richard and HR. 2 weeks' notice, and I'm free. Jake turned around, wiping his hands on a towel. Congratulations, he said, hugging her. How do you feel? It's easy, she said, pressing herself closer. And a little scary, but right. That's the main thing, he said, kissing the top of her head. Now sit down, dinner is almost ready. They ate at the table, chatting about small things. Buddy, Mrs. Clark's neighbor, how the pigeons had fouled the balcony again. For the first time in months, the conversation was light, without tension. After dinner, they cleared the dishes and sat on the sofa with wine, turning on an old movie When Harry Met Sally. Emily snuggled up against him, her head on his shoulder. Remember watching this on your first date? She asked, sipping her wine. Yeah, Jake said, grinning. You spilled popcorn, and I pretended I didn't notice. Liar, she laughed. You still remind me. Because it was nice, he said, kissing her temple. They finished the movie, but they didn't sleep, they talked. Emily told them about work, how Richard demanded the impossible, how colleagues dumped each other for bonuses. Jake listened, nodding, feeling her words take some of his anger away. He told them about his fear that she would leave, that he was no longer needed. She squeezed his hand. You're needed, she said. Always have been. I just forgot how to show it. Don't forget again, he said seriously. I'm not made of iron. I know, she said, looking into his eyes. And you speak too. Don't keep it to yourself. We have a deal, he said, smiling. They spent the night in the bedroom. but did not sleep until the morning. They loved each other, laughed, and remembered old jokes. In the morning, Jake woke up first. Emily was asleep, curled up next to him. He looked at her, feeling that they were on their way. Not perfect, but together. On Wednesday, they walked into Dr. Linda Carter's office on the Loop. The room was cozy, a soft couch, books, a window overlooking the city. Linda, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a warm smile, greeted them. "Jake, Emily," she said, shaking hands. "It's good to see you. Sit down and tell me what brought you here." They sat down, Emily speaking first. "We went through a crisis," she said, looking at her hands. "Months of arguments, misunderstandings. I almost destroyed our marriage. We want to fix it." Jake nodded, adding, "I am also guilty. I was silent, I joked instead of talking. We want to learn to be honest." Linda nodded, taking notes. "Okay," she said. "Honesty is key. Tell us what happened. No judgment, just the facts." Emily sighed and began. "I drowned at work. Stress, pressure. I stopped being myself. I met a man who gave attention. It was a mistake. Jake found out, and we almost lost each other." Jake continued. "I felt she was moving away, but I didn't know how to get through to her. I hired a detective, made a scene in a cafe. I'm not proud, but it opened our eyes." Linda smiled. "You've both made mistakes, but you're here," she said. "That's strength. Let's start small. How do you communicate? What gets in the way?" "I'm afraid to burden him," Emily said. "I think he'll think I'm weak." "And I'm afraid she'll leave," said Jake. "I'm keeping quiet so as not to put pressure on her." Linda nodded. "Fear is a common enemy," she said. "Let's try an exercise. Say one honest thing every day about feelings, fears, even small things, without judgment. Do you agree?" "Yes," Emily said. "I'll try," Jake said. "Great," Linda said. "And one more thing. Find time for you. Not work, not the dog, just you. What do you like to do together?" "Music," Jake said. "Dancing in the kitchen, listening to Radiohead." "Food," Emily added, smiling. "His steaks are the best." "Okay," Linda said. "Start with this. An evening without phones, music, steaks. Deal?" They nodded, feeling hopeful. The session lasted an hour. They left with homework and another meeting in a week. Outside, Emily took his hand. "It was not so scary," she said. "Yeah," Jake said, grinning. "She didn't call me a caveman." "Bye," Emily giggled, pushing him. They walked down the Loop, holding hands, the city buzzing around them. Buddy greeted them at home, his tail wagging. Emily put on a playlist. Jake started cooking. They danced in the kitchen, laughing, and for the first time in months, Chicago felt like home. Jake Wilson drove down the highway, one hand on the steering wheel, the other touching Emily's fingers where they rested on his knee. The morning sun was shining on the road, reflecting off Lake Michigan, and for the first time in months he felt light. Emily sat next to him, looking out the window, her brown hair blowing in the breeze from the cracked glass. The lake house was behind them, and so was their night of passion, tears, talking until dawn. They had decided to go back to Chicago, to their apartment, to their lives. But they both knew there was no easy way to get it back. The problems that had nearly destroyed their marriage needed work. Buddy, their golden retriever, was asleep in the back seat, snoring, his paws shaking in his sleep. Jake glanced in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Our baby seems happy," he said, squeezing Emily's hand. She turned, her lips twitching into a smile. "Buddy is always happy when there's food or a couch nearby," she replied, stroking his fingers. "What about us?" Jake took a deep breath, looking at the road. "We're working on it, right?" he said, trying to sound confident. "The night was good, but I don't want this to be just a moment." Emily nodded, looking away towards the lake. "Me too," she said quietly. "Jake, I'm serious. I want this to work. But I'm scared. What if we slip again?" He squeezed her hand tighter, feeling a pang of anxiety. "We won't back down," he said. We know what's at stake, and I'm not going to keep quiet if things go wrong. You promised, too. I promised, she said, looking at him. Her eyes were tired, but there was a flicker of determination in them. I was thinking about work. I want to quit. Jake raised his eyebrows, not taking his eyes off the road. Quit? He asked. Emily, this is unexpected. You love your job. Or did. She shook her head, fiddling with the strap of her bag. I thought I loved you, she said. But these last few months, it's not love, it's survival. The deadlines, the meetings, the pressure. I was drowning, Jake. And instead of telling you, she paused, swallowing. I looked elsewhere. In Tyler, he said, trying not to sound harsh. Emily looked down. Yes, she admitted, and I hate myself for it. But the job, it was draining me. I'd come home empty. I didn't want to burden you, but I ended up making it worse. Jake nodded, turning over her words. He knew her job at the marketing agency was tough late calls, urgent presentations, a boss who demanded the impossible. But he hadn't thought it had gone this far. We'll manage financially, he said, recalling their budget. My salary covers the mortgage, the bills, even Buddy and his expensive food. But are you sure? This is a big step. I'm sure, she said, straightening up. I don't want to be that Emily who comes home and hides behind her laptop. I want to be with you, with us. Maybe I'll do something new freelancing courses, but right now I need to stop. Jake looked at her, feeling warmth in his chest. Okay, he said, I support that. But let's discuss it at home with numbers. I'm an analyst, I like tables. She laughed for the first time that morning, and the sound of her laughter was like music. Signs, she repeated, pushing his shoulder. You're unbearable. You love it, he grinned, and for a second they were back to their old selves, newlyweds teasing each other at every turn. They fell silent, but the silence was comfortable. Jake thought about what was waiting for them at home. The apartment, Buddy, their routine all the same, but now with a crack that needed to be mended. He remembered Mike's advice, give her a chance, but dig deep. They'd started digging the night before, but it wasn't enough. Emily, he said, lowering his voice, I was thinking, maybe we should talk to someone. You know, a professional, a family therapist, or whatever they call them. She turned, her eyebrows rising slightly. Therapist, she asked, are you serious? You always called it weakling nonsense. Jake chuckled, remembering his old jokes. Yeah, I know, he said, but I was wrong. We've been through hell, Em. Tyler, the fights, my stupid show in the cafe. I don't want that to happen again. I want us to learn to talk, not just be silent. Emily was silent, looking at the road. He waited for her to wave him off, but she nodded. Maybe you're right, she said. I was afraid to tell you about my problems because, I don't know, I thought you'd think I was weak, and you kept quiet, and I thought you didn't care. Maybe a therapist can help us, not keep quiet. That's what I want, Jake said, feeling relieved. For us to be honest, even if it hurts. Even if it hurts, she repeated, squeezing his hand. Okay, let's try. But if the therapist starts asking about our childhood traumas, I'll run away. He laughed, shaking his head. We have a deal, he said. No childhood trauma, just us, here and now. They pulled into Chicago around noon. The city was buzzing with cars honking, people hurrying along the sidewalks, the smell of hot dogs in the air. Jake parked in front of their house, and Buddy woke up immediately, nuzzling his shoulder. Home, Buddy, Jake said, opening the door. Come on, show me how much you missed me. Emily picked up her bag and looked at their building, 14 floors, their apartment on one of them. She sighed. It's strange, she said. We left yesterday, but it seems like an eternity has passed. Because it did, Jake said, taking her bag. But we're back. Let's go. They stood close in the elevator, Buddy bumping into Emily's legs. She scratched him behind the ear, smiling. He knows we're okay, she said. He knows he wants food, Jake chuckled, and they laughed. The apartment smelled like home coffee, books, a hint of dog hair. Buddy ran for the bowl, and Jake dropped his bags by the door. Emily walked into the living room, stood by the window, looking out at the city. I missed this view, she said. Even those stupid pigeons. Jake walked over and hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. And I missed you, he said, even when you were here. She turned and hugged him, pressing herself against him. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I forgive you, he said, kissing her forehead. But let's not repeat it. They sat down on the couch, Buddy lying down at their feet. Jake pulled out his laptop and opened a spreadsheet with their budget. Okay, miss, I want to quit, he said, grinning. Let's do the math. My salary is $120,000 a year. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, food, Buddy, that's about $80,000. That leaves for living expenses, travel, stuff. Your salary is $90,000, but without it, we'll just tighten our belts. No new bags, okay? Emily rolled her eyes, pushing him. That bag was a gift, she said. From a colleague, a woman. Don't start. Okay, he laughed. But seriously, we'll manage. Maybe less often at restaurants, but I'm ready to cook steaks. Your steaks are love, she said, smiling. I'll think about freelancing. Maybe design or consulting. But not now. I want to just be for a couple of months. It's good to be, Jake said, closing his laptop. But let's find a therapist. I don't want to put it off. Emily nodded and took out her phone. I'm already looking, she said, leafing through. Here, Dr. Linda Carter. They say she's good with couples. Office on the loop. Want me to write it down? Go ahead, he said. But if she says I'm a caveman, I'll leave. She'll say you're a cute caveman, Emily giggled as she dialed the number. She made an appointment for Wednesday. 10 a.m. Jake watched her talk to the receptionist and felt like they were taking a step. A small one, but an important one. It's done, she said, putting the phone down. Dr. Carter is waiting for us. Now I have to quit. I'll write a letter today. Today? Jake asked. Don't you want to think about it for a couple of days? No, she said, decisively. I've made up my mind. I want to close this chapter. My boss, Richard, already knows I'm at my limit. He won't be surprised. Jake nodded, feeling proud of her determination. Okay, he said. Write the letter, and I'll get dinner ready. Steaks. Only with potatoes, she said, smiling. We have a deal, he said, standing up. Emily opened her laptop and started writing a letter of resignation. Jake went to the kitchen, got out some meat, potatoes, and greens. He turned on their old playlist Radiohead, Coldplay, and started cooking. The smell of fried meat filled the apartment, and Buddy came running and sat down at the stove. Not a chance, Buddy, Jake said, tossing him a piece of carrot. This is for us. Emily walked in holding a laptop. Send it, she said, setting it on the table. To Richard and HR. 2 weeks' notice, and I'm free. Jake turned around, wiping his hands on a towel. Congratulations, he said, hugging her. How do you feel? It's easy, she said, pressing herself closer. And a little scary, but right. That's the main thing, he said, kissing the top of her head. Now sit down, dinner is almost ready. They ate at the table, chatting about small things. Buddy, Mrs. Clark's neighbor, how the pigeons had fouled the balcony again. For the first time in months, the conversation was light, without tension. After dinner, they cleared the dishes and sat on the sofa with wine, turning on an old movie When Harry Met Sally. Emily snuggled up against him, her head on his shoulder. Remember watching this on your first date? She asked, sipping her wine. Yeah, Jake said, grinning. You spilled popcorn, and I pretended I didn't notice. Liar, she laughed. You still remind me. Because it was nice, he said, kissing her temple. They finished the movie, but they didn't sleep, they talked. Emily told them about work, how Richard demanded the impossible, how colleagues dumped each other for bonuses. Jake listened, nodding, feeling her words take some of his anger away. He told them about his fear that she would leave, that he was no longer needed. She squeezed his hand. "You're needed," she said. "Always have been. I just forgot how to show it." "Don't forget again," he said seriously. "I'm not made of iron." "I know," she said, looking into his eyes. "And you speak too. Don't keep it to yourself." "We have a deal," he said, smiling. They spent the night in the bedroom, but did not sleep until the morning. They loved each other, laughed, and remembered old jokes. In the morning, Jake woke up first. Emily was asleep, curled up next to him. He looked at her, feeling that they were on their way. Not perfect, but together. On Wednesday, they walked into Dr. Linda Carter's office on the Loop. The room was cozy, a soft couch, books, a window overlooking the city. Linda, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a warm smile, greeted them. "Jake, Emily," she said, shaking hands. "It's good to see you. Sit down and tell me what brought you here." They sat down, Emily speaking first. "We went through a crisis," she said, looking at her hands. "Months of arguments, misunderstandings. I almost destroyed our marriage. We want to fix it." Jake nodded, adding, "I am also guilty. I was silent. I joked instead of talking. We want to learn to be honest." Linda nodded, taking notes. "Okay," she said. "Honesty is key. Tell us what happened. No judgment, just the facts." Emily sighed and began. "I drowned at work. Stress, pressure. I stopped being myself. I met a man who gave attention. It was a mistake. Jake found out, and we almost lost each other." Jake continued. "I felt she was moving away, but I didn't know how to get through to her. I hired a detective, made a scene in a cafe. I'm not proud, but it opened our eyes." Linda smiled. "You've both made mistakes, but you're here," she said. "That's strength. Let's start small. How do you communicate? What gets in the way?" "I'm afraid to burden him," Emily said. "I think he'll think I'm weak." "And I'm afraid she'll leave," said Jake. "I'm keeping quiet so as not to put pressure on her." Linda nodded. "Fear is a common enemy," she said. "Let's try an exercise. Say one honest thing every day about feelings, fears, even small things, without judgment. Do you agree?" "Yes," Emily said. "I'll try," Jake said. "Great," Linda said. "And one more thing. Find time for you. Not work, not the dog, just you. What do you like to do together?" "Music," Jake said. "Dancing in the kitchen, listening to Radiohead." "Food," Emily added, smiling. "His steaks are the best." "Okay," Linda said. "Start with this. An evening without phones, music, steaks. Deal?" They nodded, feeling hopeful. The session lasted an hour. They left with homework and another meeting in a week. Outside, Emily took his hand. "It was not so scary," she said. "Yeah," Jake said, grinning. "She didn't call me a caveman." "Bye," Emily giggled, pushing him. They walked down the Loop, holding hands, the city buzzing around them. Buddy greeted them at home, his tail wagging. Emily put on a playlist. Jake started cooking. They danced in the kitchen, laughing, and for the first time in months, Chicago felt like home. The morning in the Wilsons' Chicago apartment was bustling, warm, and full of life. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating the kitchen, which smelled of freshly brewed coffee and pancakes with maple syrup. Jake stood at the stove, humming a Radiohead tune as he flipped pancakes, careful not to burn them like old times. Emily sat at the table, braiding the hair of 6-year-old Leela, their daughter, whose brown eyes glittered with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Buddy, their golden retriever, now slightly gray, lay under the table, hoping for a dropped morsel. "Daddy, are you making heart-shaped pancakes again?" Leela asked, turning her head, causing Emily to gently hold her chin. "Just for my schoolgirl," Jake winked, flipping a pancake in the frying pan. "But if Buddy asks, I can make him a bone." Leela giggled, her curls bouncing. "Buddy doesn't go to school," she said, glancing at the dog. Will he miss me? Emily smiled as she tied the ribbon on her braid. Buddy will be waiting for you at the door, she said, kissing the top of Leela's head. So will we. The first day of school is an adventure, Bear. Leela nodded, but her fingers fiddled with the edge of her new unicorn backpack. What if I forget where my class is? She asked, her voice growing quieter. Or if no one wants to be my friend? Jake turned, setting the plate of pancakes on the table. He sat down next to her, looking into her big eyes. Hey, Leela, he said softly. Did you know you're the coolest girl in Chicago? Your teacher will help you find a class, and your friends. They'll see you drawing unicorns and line up. Emily squeezed Leela's hand, adding, and if you get scared, just remember that Dad and I are always with you, even if we're not in class, okay? Okay, Leela said, smiling wider. Can I take the teddy bear in my backpack? For luck? Sure, Jake said, standing up to get the teddy bear that Leela hadn't let go of since their first meeting. But he has to stay quiet, no singing in class. Leela laughed, hugging the bear, and began to eat her pancakes, dipping them in syrup. Emily looked at Jake, their eyes met, and gratitude flashed in hers. 5 years had passed since they saw the news report about Leela, a 1-year-old girl who lost her parents. 5 years of adoption, sleepless nights, first steps, laughter, tears, and endless love that made them a complete family. Are you ready for this? Emily asked, sipping her coffee while Leela painted on a plate with syrup. To school, Jake chuckled, putting the frying pan away. Or to the fact that our little girl isn't a little girl anymore. Both of them, she said, lowering her voice. It seems like only yesterday we were changing her diapers, and now, school. Jake sat down next to her, taking her hand. I'm ready as long as you're around, he said, smiling. The Wilson team will handle it, as always. She squeezed his fingers, her smile warm. We've come a long way, haven't we? She said. From that lake house, too. This one. Very far, he nodded, remembering their journey. The crisis with Tyler, therapy with Linda, adopting Leela, the years when they were learning to be parents. And I wouldn't change a minute. Emily leaned down, kissing him before Leela, busy with her pancakes, noticed. Ugh, you're kissing again, she exclaimed, wrinkling her nose. Get used to it, Bear, Jake laughed, winking. It's part of the family package. After breakfast, they gathered at the door. Emily helped Leela put on her backpack and straightened her blue checkered dress. Jake took the car keys, but Leela insisted on walking. I'm big, she said, stamping her foot. School children walk. Okay, big one, Jake said, raising his hands. But we're going with you. No arguing. They walked out into the Chicago streets, where the morning was humming, cars honking, pigeons scattering at the sound of footsteps. Leela walked between them, holding their hands, her backpack bouncing. Emily kept adjusting her ribbon, and Jake told a silly story about dropping a tray in the cafeteria in first grade. And everyone laughed? Leela asked, her eyes wide. Everything, Jake said, sighing dramatically. But then I gave them cookies, and they became my friends. I'll have some cookies too, Leela decided, and Emily laughed. Clever girl, she said. But first, let's find your classroom. The school was a few blocks away, with a red brick facade and a bustling courtyard where children ran and parents took pictures. Leela slowed, her fingers tightening on Emily's. Mom, she whispered, what if you don't like me? Emily sat down, looking into her eyes. You'll be liked, Teddy Bear, she said softly. Be yourself. Smile the way you know how, and everything will be fine. And if anything happens, Dad and I will pick you up after school. Leela nodded, hugging her. Jake sat down next to her, hugging them both. You're our star, he said, kissing her forehead. Show them how the Wilsons shine. The teacher, Miss Rogers, a young woman with a bright smile, approached holding a list. Leela Wilson, she asked, leaning over. I'm your teacher. Would you like to see our class? Leela looked at her parents, then nodded, taking Miss Rogers' hand. Emily felt a lump in her throat, but smiled. "We'll be here at 3, she said, waving. "We love you." "I love you," Leela shouted, turning around and running towards the class, her pigtails bouncing. Jake put his arm around Emily's shoulders as they watched Leela disappear into the crowd of children. "She'll cope," he said, feeling his voice tremble. "I know," Emily said, wiping away a tear, "but I miss you already." They walked home holding hands, Buddy greeting them with his tail wagging. The apartment seemed quieter without Leela, but they knew this was just the beginning. Emily put on their playlist, Jake poured coffee, and they sat on the couch, looking at the photos of Leela on the wall, from her first steps to last night trying on her school dress. "We did it," Emily said, clinging to him. "We're family." "The best," Jake said, kissing her. "And this is just the beginning." They spent the day cooking dinner steaks, as always, and waiting for Leela, knowing their home was full of love, laughter, and the future they had built together. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even click to the next one.